right? I think we are all essentially victims of something. And so at the end of the day, I'm not playing any small violence for myself. I'm just saying that, look, I think life as as a phenomenon in of itself is beautiful. It's worth living. But I think that I don't know if I want to, like, you know, I'm categorically certain that mine at this point is too much. You know, the seething pain that I go through is far outweighs the moments of joy that do happen, and that's sort of what led me to that decision.
All right, well, thank you for sharing that. That gives us a lot more. It gives me personally, again, I obviously was sharing this with the audience, but this is a conversation between us, and it gives a lot more context. And again, back to the idea of you don't know what everyone's going through, and a lot of people are. Everyone's going through something. In regards to this process of you deciding to make this obviously big decision, what goes through your head outside of what you just explained? Like, what are you weighing back and forth between staying alive and doing this assisted euthanasia?
I think at the end of the day, I'm always sort of trying to consider, like, what I really want at the end of the day, and I think that's really just to have, like, non-violent peace and relief. That's honestly what it is. It's. I've spoken to, like, hundreds of people. I've had the privilege of speaking to hundreds of people who have either taken their daughter or a friend to get euthanized when the date came, after the bureaucracy of a year or two. I've spoken to people who changed their minds. I've spoken to people who have themselves present continuously, fulfilled that journey, and are left with a few months. I spoke to a lovely guy who on Saturday who is a tree surgeon. I believe it's called an arborist or arborist. Or an arborist, sorry, a tree surgeon who basically, after 4 years, is in the final months leading up to where he will be euthanized in the Ardennen forest in Belgium by lethal injection. After going by the doctor that gave birth, that sort of gave birth to him, essentially, or facilitated his birth, is what I mean. So that was another really beautiful, unique story, and the fact that it took him 4 years versus others where it takes 1 to 2 was also quite interesting. So I think it's just seeking that relief, and I think that's the conflict. That I guess I wouldn't say one goes through necessarily, but one's external elements like friends and family sort of go through, because I think your feelings are constantly being invalidated. Not even I would even say feelings, because that sounds a bit frivolous. Your lived experience is constantly being invalidated because people are wondering if it's really that bad, or if, because one looks so well adjusted and put together and sort of sane. But I think people don't really understand the mental fatigue that goes into becoming this every day. The guy I spoke to, the tree surgeon, suffers from CPTSD, complex PTSD, and he as well looked very soft-spoken, very kind, very well put together. But there was definitely you could tell, because I obviously anyone who's suffered chronic mental disorders can tell that there was definitely a war in his mind that he just really, really wanted to put an end, and I can definitely understand that.
Understood. So is part of this process of you making it so public and putting yourself out there and sharing your message with the world and seeking validation?
No. The reason why I've been doing this is painfully simple. And no matter what anyone thinks or projects, this is what it is. My Instagram, two things. My Instagram is a public diary. It's a public scrapbook. It is not a human right. People don't have to consume my Instagram. People don't have to consume my Substack. These are not necessities. So it's there. It exists. If you want to look at it, do. If you don't. Whatever the algorithm does is what the algorithm does, but it's not, obligatory. It's just my way of documenting my life.
Though maybe quote unquote controversial, people are doing it at record numbers, it seems like, at this point, and it's in such a more traumatic manner because it's not as prepped, if you will. And that's where I kind of understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that preventative measure, because it does leave a little bit of a buffer. Maybe it opens the doors for conversations with people in your life because you are bringing it up, when often the times when it comes to someone making this decision on their own, it's a snap of the finger and they didn't see it coming, or maybe they saw it coming, but then he just made the decision. So I can see the reciprocal nature of this being preventative because of that bureaucratic process, and it's not happening immediately. There's more discussion. There's maybe more families can get involved and have an open dialogue to
also,
prevent this.
Yeah, and also you're so right because the didn't see it coming statement makes my blood flammable. It really does irk me because there's so many like amazing campaigns. There's even like this amazing advertisement about two friends who go to a football game consistently over a period. One seems more docile and morbid and sunken. The other always seems more lively, and the one seems and active. And they sort of do a sort of a carousel of like the different games they go to, and then in the last frame, the one who was lively and energetic, his chair is empty because he's offed himself, is the implication. And the one who was docile and calm and almost morbid lived. And the ad ended by saying that, something along the lines of, it's never who you think it is. And so but still, an ad is an ad is an ad. I think people still think that there is and don't get me wrong, sometimes there are signs of like melancholia and people who are into, but sometimes the person you have to worry about the most is the class clown.
Yeah, I found that within my own life, and even if you look at celebrities that I've had that have taken this path, it's almost like it's a projection.
Right?
Is that correct?
Robin Williams, for example, being the most, I guess, known example in that capacity. Like of that quote, like always, like sometimes the one you should be worrying about is the class clown, the one who's always trying to make everyone happy.
Right. It's like, what are they covering up? And then if anything, that should be a sign to really check in with people. And all this conversation is for me is to see in your eyes, because everyone can make an assumption. Everyone can make a judgment based on looking at their phone. But unless we dig into the truth as to what you are feeling, we'll never understand. And that extrapolates to everyone's life, because it's so easy to judge and think we understand from our puny little lens that has no relation to what someone else is going through. And this hopefully will create dialogue to others feeling the same way. And, it's, to me, this is such an important conversation. I'm not ending the episode. I feel like this is a thank you. It should be at the end, but this is just a conversation that should be having more. And hopefully this opens the doors and eyes of other people just to take a second and try to understand without fully understanding what this person sees, as opposed to looking at it from our own lens.
No, I appreciate that, because I really, at the end of the day, I think somebody asked me, is my work about awareness? And I said, awareness is a cute word, but actually I want to go beyond awareness. I'm super dedicated to the normalization of these discussions, because awareness is a very othering term sometimes. Awareness sounds like it sounds like a very charitable word, like but I really, what I'm advocating for goes beyond that. It's for the normalization, the radical normalization of these complex discussions about like chronic mental disorders that people just face, and why we need to have these conversations so that people don't feel as if they have no escape route, and that as much of the shame and the rot that comes with the shame can be taken out of what isn't still to this day deemed somewhat like to be a taboo topic, and that's what I'm trying to do every day with my story.